Since 2005, I've been watching Doctor Who, and with all its highs and lows, I've consistently taken from it any and every message that meant something to me, whether that be to solve problems verbally instead of violently, or to help the people around me, even to accept that change is an integral part of life. Since I was a toddler, I've watched The Lord of the Rings at least once a year. From it, I learned the importance of perseverance in the face of adversity, and that any person, no matter how small, can make a difference. For about the same amount of time, I've watched Star Wars over and over again, where I learned that no matter how cruel, one may be redeemed if they atone and attempt to better themselves, as well as of the grand power of love that is within us. Across all of these different pieces of media, and many others, I learned that if you have the ability to affect change, it is your responsibility to at least try to do so. Whenever I was faced with many kinds of problems, my first thought was always, what would X character do? X usually being the Doctor. And while it did help with such problems, I slowly felt that every time I approached a situation in this way, I was not myself. I was more accurately channeling a character. I did not quite know who I was because I was always pretending to be someone else to get through the more difficult parts of life. Yet I decided not to change anything. I just kept on as I was, a little lost and confused, but at least I was still able to do what I thought was right for the people around me, even if that was at the cost of myself. As of July the 6th, 2025, I have finished playing Metaphor ReFantasio, 8 months after its release, and I am sat here thinking about the beauty in which this game is written, tearing up at how truly inspiring it is, and happier than ever that my personal experience and philosophy is displayed in such a successful piece of art. Although on a surface level, the game seems to be the classic anti-prejudice type story, it slowly unravels to become more complex, and less about what many other stories already tell. It explores how anxiety is bred from a lack of belief in one's personal future, to where anxiety calls for the necessity of fantasy in order to escape reality, to then invert fantasy and depict it as reality to reveal to the player that fantasy is not just a fantasy, or a means of escape. It is a means to progressing society. Fantasy is a means to bettering yourself, or for your partner, your family, your community. It is a means to creating your utopia. The game's director, Katsura Hashino, harnesses themes of many stories from the genre of fantasy to convey his thoughts, his ideals, and personal philosophy to the player on what the concept of utopia truly is. Is utopia granted to a world in which prejudice against race or religion is abolished, or to a world that dismantles the discrimination of an individual's status, wellness, sentiment, or ideology? Hashino discusses this question and many of a similar nature through the unnamed fantasy novel carried by the protagonist. This book is a reflection of the real novel Utopia written by Thomas More, in that it is a recount of the thoughts and experiences from the character Hythloday. Over the course of the game, Hashino questions religion, systems of government, judicial systems, birthrights, etc. He finds that the answer to these questions is a resounding, no, Utopia is neither of these things. It is something better that we have not yet attained. Instead, Utopia is what you believe is true, right, and just. As for myself, Utopia is a world where we all lend a helping hand to the people around us. This too is completely unrealistic, but in trying to do my part for the people I care for, or the people I work with, or the people who come up to me on the side of the street, perhaps I can spark a little more trust and a little more generosity throughout my community. Metaphor does not wish for its audience to create a single utopia for everyone. That is the fantasy. Instead, it tries to spark that inspiration within the audience so that we are the ones who create our little utopias all across the world. That is reality. Millions of little communities are affected by this small spark of hope that Metaphor has brought to its great audience. That is Hashino doing his part to create utopia. I've seen on this platform some people voicing that they do not like the game as a whole, as it does not let one choose their own fantasy like in Fallout or Dungeons & Dragons. To them it seems a game that tells one explicitly to create their own fantasy, but does not allow one to do so within the game itself, and that is what is wrong with it. I find that this perspective is a misinterpretation. The bulk of the game is designed to make the player guide the protagonist into creating Hashino's utopia. It is the world that is created at the end of the game that Hashino desires to see and would fight for. The added layer of the narrator addressing the seeker is there to inspire the player into discovering and fighting for their own utopia in real life, not in the game. That is why one must choose two names at the start. The player is embodying the seeker, who is guiding the protagonist. They are not embodying the protagonist. The main narrative of the game is a showcase, an example of a utopia, and a way of life. It is not one's fantasy playground, for that would be a disrespect to the director's personal thoughts on the discussion of what utopia should look like. If I could summarize the game in its entirety, it is effectively Hashino saying, "This is my way of life and the utopia that stems from that. Now show me yours by applying it to reality." He is inviting you through example and experience to both create and live your personal fantasy. Ultimately, Metaphor ReFantasio is reaching beyond itself to inspire greatness within the seeker, within the player, within you. Over the past couple years, I have sought pieces of media that will help me to better myself, perhaps even understand myself a little more, but to ultimately help me be a more knowledgeable individual for those around me. I've read several books, including The Vertigo Years, teaching me a culture that is recent, yet recently departed as well, Frankenstein, where I learned of the burdens one may carry regarding their creations or creators, the JMS run of The Amazing Spider-Man, where I was able to understand myself a little more through Peter and his relationship with Mary Jane, A Cracking Creation and Genome, 2 books teaching me to be a better scientist, specifically a geneticist. And We, which provided me the knowledge of how a purely mathematical world would function and how it would be affected by those with emotional complexity. Alongside these titles, I had also played several games that have stuck with me since, from Persona 3 helping me to learn how to learn about people's worldviews in conversation, especially when I fundamentally disagree with the other person, to Fallout 1, 2, and New Vegas helping me to discover what I would do in such harsh and complex situations as provided by those titles, to Planescape Torment, which helped realize my personal philosophy more than I had previously, while also learning of the many philosophies the world contains. But none of these titles have come quite as close to coinciding with me as an individual in such a way as Metaphor ReFantasio. This is the first piece of media that I have come across where the core of who I am is championed above all else. I find myself feeling that even though I might channel other characters, it does not mean I am inherently lesser or not myself when I do so. It is just the way I find that gives me the strength to help those in need. Perhaps that will change for me as I continue through my 20s and ever on through my life. But for now, it is fantasy that gives me strength. It is the Doctor that gives me strength. It is Samwise and Luke Skywalker, and Makoto Yuki, Peter Parker, Aang, Sora, Cloud, and so many other fictional characters, made real only because they are designed to help us through life, not to escape it. I know now without a doubt I am not this husk of a man pretending to be many people I am not. I am a learned man forming my own utopia from lessons taught by the stories I have experienced. Lessons like,
always try to be nice, but never fail to be kind. A man who never would! I am a Jedi.
Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
In the end, it's only a passing thing. This shadow. But there's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo. And it's worth fighting for.
I don't need a weapon. My friends are my power.
all these lessons have shaped me into who I am today just as much as my parents and friends have. I realize that I am at least the 100 billionth person to go through a journey of discovery, and the 10 millionth to go through it via a video game. But I think it is important to write one's own introspection at such times, and at times even to share them. Life is learning and growing, and we progress as individuals by thinking on those moments that mean the most to us, whether small or large. While my parents may have taught me to be kind to those around me, and yet to be wary of others as well, they could never have taught me to absorb the knowledge that is given through favoured media in the way that I do. That part is who I am, and while I have always known that to be a hobby of mine, I did not know until now that it is as core to me as my want to help people. I could not be more grateful to Hashino and his team for creating Metaphor ReFantasio, and inspiring me to truly understand myself so much more, and not only that, but to accept that part of me as well. If I can learn from all the storytellers out there who have something truly meaningful to say about life, or God, or science, or art, then perhaps those stories can help me to imagine my utopia, and thusly, I may turn that utopia into a reality. I am proud to say that Metaphor ReFantasio was one of those bigger moments of growth for me, and I shall continue to seek out such moments. And with all my heart, I hope that others will let fantasy be their strength.